Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, August 19th, 2020, and this is a little update on Guildflow. Specifically, I want to talk a little bit about challenging your assumptions as you're building a new product. So I've come into this obviously with a lot of personal bias and opinion about what I like in Meetup software. But I have been trying to do user interviews. I go through waves where I would do a bunch of interviews, and then I wouldn't do a couple for 2 months while I would be heads down working on tech, and then I'd start to do more. But as the tech is starting to kind of solidify, I want to do more, and so I've been doing some. And the first note is if you would like to talk to me about your own meetup group, or would like to give me a reference to your own meetup organizer, there'll be a link below to do that. But yeah, the interviews I've been doing lately have definitely leaned a little bit more towards general market research rather than customer development or user interface validation. And one of the resources I'll mention first is the Mom Test, which is a book, a really nice book. It's pretty lean. You can read it fairly quickly, but it teaches you how to talk to customers and avoid asking questions that don't really give you good information. There's a lot of questions you can ask when talking to people about your product that you're building, and you'll get a lot of false validation because you're asking leading questions. You're asking for, you're asking for, as an example, will you do this, rather than asking them, what are you doing? It's much better to base what you're learning off of people's actual behavior and not what they say they will do. A lot of people say they will do things, but what they actually do is a much more important factor to consider. So definitely recommend the Mom Test. And so for me, as I've been doing these interviews, there's been a number of things that have actually been, assumptions that have been challenged. The one I want to talk today about is counts, which is a little dry at first, but hear me through. So when I built Guildflow, I built it. So I'll explain the current behavior, and then I'll kind of explain the challenges that are being the assumptions that are being broken by some of these early interviews. When you create a group in Guildflow currently, you create a group and then you invite people to join the group. And so the member accounts are contained within the group. So if there were two groups being held on Guildflow, you would actually have to create two separate accounts. And I don't do this to make it more difficult, but I did it because when I first built the kind of schema for Guildflow, I did it with the eye of an organizer, and so the early goal was about group portability. I wanted to make sure that if you were running a group within Guildflow, and then for whatever reason you want to leave because your group was so successful, you're going to do something custom, or you feel like Guildflow is charging too much money later down the road, you have that control. And so by having the accounts within the group, it just made it a little bit easier to do that. But talking with people, this was not what they expected. There was this general belief that it would work just like everything else that they're accustomed to, like meetup.com or Twitter. Well, Twitter is bad the case, but Facebook or GitHub in that case, where you have an account and you can become a collaborator on many different repos. And so they expected on Guildflow to create a Guildflow account and then join groups within Guildflow, and they anticipated actually being able to browse to the groups on Guildflow. And it's tough because that was not how I originally thought I wanted the system to work. I wanted, for example, the website. So I run an Android book club on Guildflow, and when you go to the website is for the Android book club. It doesn't have the Guildflow Chrome all around it. It's not about pushing Guildflow. It's about letting your site be the star of the page. But all that said, it's just something that people have kind of fought against, and some of it is just general expectation. Some of it is actually even like a remembrance of the early days of Slack. So Slack works similar to this way, where every Slack you create a specific account within that Slack. And I think they probably did it for some of the same reasons I did, and they have kind of overcome the sign-on problem by pushing this like sign in through your email. And so like you can validate your email, and then if you have that same email on multiple accounts, you can kind of quickly get authentication tokens for all those different Slack rooms or Slack workspaces, I guess is the correct term. But yeah, so this has really been tough for me. There's a lot of pros and cons on both sides. I've already mentioned a couple of the reasons I did it, the pros. The other, so I'll talk a little bit about the pros on the other side. So one is this idea that it just simplifies authentication. It removes a lot of UI concerns. It lets people have a single calendar that they subscribe to. It also helps with direct messages. So I don't do direct messages currently, but I could totally foresee doing that in the future. And this actually came up recently because I'm part of a coworking space that is considering a move to Discord. We currently use Slack as like our main thing. And one of the things, I actually have an article up I can share with you. This is Chris's post on why I use Discord for open communities. And he talks a little bit about some of the improvements to blocking and how that can work and role-based stuff. And but this is kind of interesting when DMs aren't recorded. So like when you're in a Slack and you direct message somebody like within that workspace, there is this like air of privacy, but at the same time, like you probably, most people don't even consider like those DMs are accessible by the maintainer of the Slack. I don't know how easy it is today to actually like hit a button and view all of them or export the data. I know earlier. Sorry for that phone interruption. Where was I? So we were talking about direct messages. When you're in a Slack and you're sending direct messages, there is this air of privacy, and I don't think people really appreciate the fact that like a Slack maintainer kind of can access your direct messages, which is a little odd. And because I am trying to keep in mind harassment concerns and other things, there's some benefits to keeping the account at the higher level, and just some like ways that helps me out, just manage some of that. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, in the short term, this isn't really going to change my next like 6 weeks of work, because most of it is like foundational, like credit card processing type things and whatever. But it is something I'm seriously giving a lot of thought into. I'm also I'll give a little shout out to, I'm reading this book, Working in Public, the making and maintenance of open source software, and it's a really good book. I'm about halfway through, I guess, at this point. And they talk in it about how GitHub as a platform has kind of enabled this growth of the open source movement. And I've been a participant in that and seeing it grow from, when we used to use SourceForge and SVN, and then migrated to Git and GitHub, and how that has exploded. But at the same time, there always has been this little friction there, because it's like, even though Git is open source and Git itself is a distributed system, it's kind of ironic that we embrace this distributed version control system and everybody puts the repos on one server. But there's a lot to GitHub that is not part of the repo, like the issues and the pull request system, and the idea that like you would want to move that in some time, like that would be really hard. And the book kind of goes over some projects that have tried that and had friction with regarding it and so forth. There's also so in addition to the book, I'll also give a plug to this episode of Changelog, episode 408, with an interview with Nadia Nadia. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing that right. But it was a really good episode and interview. Which talks about some of these concepts and issues. Um, Specifically, I think like one of the arguments of the book is that even though us developers constantly think about the exit, we should really kind of embrace um, just like evolving platforms to meet the needs, and not necessarily like that's almost like some for some of us, and myself included, like the first thing we do when we kind of touch down into a platform is we think, okay, well, when this goes to shit, how do I get out? Which is there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, as a developer who's been doing this for a long time, I mean, I've been on lots of platforms that have gone south. I remember early Twitter being very appreciative of developers and APIs, and then like they just locked it down and kind of kicked us out. I mean, there's a whole thing going on with Apple right now, and I myself have been, slowly backing away from the Apple camp for a couple of years now. So I don't want to build another silo. Like I don't want to do that, but at the same time, it's tough to ignore the advantages of the platform, like of building a platform that let people kind of connect. And there's like inherent lock-in a little bit. I mean, but I really want to balance that. And so, yeah, I mean, this has been a lot to think about. As I said, I don't think it's going to affect my my next like chunk of work that is going to be done regardless. But we'll see. I mean, maybe in a little while we'll have like another significant update to Guildflow that kind of flips the account system and really pushes this platform thing. I don't know. I have a lot to think about. So the point being that I want to encourage you all to do more user interviews, ask those mom test questions, and let people really challenge your assumptions. It can only help your software and in the long term. So with that, I will break for the day. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for your interest. Again, if you have a meetup organizer, if you yourself are a meetup organizer, or another one, please give them a reference to my calendar. I'd love to talk to them, and we'll give you some more updates on Guildflow later. Things are moving along. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching. See you tonight.